Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We provide fan-oriented and analytic discussions on a variety of animated shows and movies and anime, currently featuring Steven Universe, Star vs. the Force of Evil, and Samurai Jack, among others. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Haylee Nabuurs.
Hi there.
And Beatriz Mourad.
Hello.
Today, Haley, Beatriz, and I will be counting down our top 5 Miyazaki films. Our Hayao Miyazaki directed films, very big, pertinent animation topic. Miyazaki, the probably the most famous, prominent animation director. And we've gotten to a little bit of Studio Ghibli films here on Overly Animated, but I want to start to ramp up some of our Ghibli discussions, especially Miyazaki discussions. If you want to find the podcast we've already done on Studio Ghibli films, you can go to overlyanimated.com/tag/Ghibli. We've only actually done 2 Miyazaki directed ones. I'm kind of like afraid to get into them, I think, because I just revere them so much. It's going to be me just gushing the entire time. But we've done a Totoro podcast and a Nausicaa podcast, but they're pretty early on in the show's run. We've done a lot more of the non-Miyazaki Ghibli ones, but then those are great too. And you can find discussions on those later and in that link I mentioned. But we're just going to focus in on the Miyazaki directed Ghibli films. If you're a Miyazaki newbie, I think this is an appropriate podcast for you because we're not going to go too deep into these films. We're just going to kind of like talk about why they're awesome. I guess I'm going to ask that we try not to get too much into spoilers for these, but there's just these Miyazaki films aren't films with too many spoilers already, I would say. So I don't think that's a huge issue. But if you're a Miyazaki veteran as well and you've seen them all, then I think that's also this podcast could also be good. So let me quickly define our terms here on which films are eligible. I sent this to Haley and Beatriz. So here are the 11 films eligible for this ranking. Lupin the Third, Castle of Cagliostro, which is the one probably most people haven't seen. Nausicaa, in the Valley of the Wind, Castle in the Sky, My Neighbor Totoro, Kiki's Delivery Service, Porco Rosso, Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, Ponyo, and The Wind Rises. So yeah, have you guys seen all 11 of these? I think Lupin is the questionable one here.
Yeah, I caught up on that one this morning because I had always seen it, but I never had watched it really.
Yeah.
But all the other ones I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen all of them. And even though this is like a top 5, I just want to say, disclaimer, they're all great. You can't go wrong with any of them.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah, we gotta talk, because top 5 Miyazaki films is probably one of the hardest things to narrow down to an arbitrary number. I would say all 11 of these films are good, very good, and with the exception of, I think, revealing a little bit of my list here, with the exception of Ponyo, I think all are excellent and incredible. I'm not as high on Ponyo as others, but like genuinely there's 10 films here which are like 10 of the best animated films of all time, I think. So
Definitely.
that's kind of crazy. So I guess general thoughts on what your history with Ghibli and Miyazaki, and I think these are the highest of top tier of films. What do you think, Haley?
Yeah, I completely agree. I know it was like so tough narrowing it down because I got it down to 5 and I was like, oh wait, no, that one, and it's so good. But yeah, but basically my history with Ghibli and Miyazaki is my parents, I think someone like tipped them off onto Ghibli or something. They're kind of hippies. And so we watched Ghibli growing up, and it's just kind of always been something throughout my life. And as I've gotten older, I've discovered ones that I had never had access to before the internet, and then caught up on those and everything. So it's been a lifelong love for me.
Nice. What about you, Beatriz?
Well, for me, it's very specific films. I mean, I think my love and passion for Ghibli came a little bit later, but I remember, I guess, with Kiki's Delivery Service. I am from Venezuela, and whenever we would go back for the summer, that's the film that would always be playing. So I would just like be constantly aware of this art style and this type of storytelling, but it would that was the only one I was ever introduced to. And then I was introduced to Howl much later, and then Spirited Away I saw eventually, and then it all kind of just snowballed from there.
Yeah. Similar for me. I think when I was much younger, I'd seen Kiki and Spirited Away specifically. And then, around, I don't know, like 14, around like when I was super into Avatar, got on a huge, Ghibli run, watched all of these films. And since then, certain ones of these I've seen, multiple times. Like I recently rewatched Spirited Away, probably, fifth, sixth, seventh time, it's great. Same, also rewatched Mononoke recently. Like some of these are just giant classics in my mind, and I just revere these Miyazaki films so much. And there's certain just general Ghibli ones Takata directed that are also some of my favorites of all time. So this is truly like discussing the best of animation. It's a lot of times that overly animated we just discuss, I think, the current shows, which are great, and even like Steven Universe, like an all-time great animated show. But for getting into these films, this is like truly the best. So yeah, hard to narrow it down. We're gonna save honorable mentions, which is probably just gonna be like the rest for the end, because it'll just give away our lists here. And I'm gonna let's go through each person's 5 and 4 to start, so we get our outside of the top 3. So let me know which film it is, and get into a little bit about why you love it so much. So let's get into this. I'll try to restrain myself from from saying lists are wrong. I just have problems with this, but I have very, very strong feelings here. I mean, I think
we all do.
Actually, yeah. Before we start, let's the last thing I want to do preface this is I want to talk about the structure of our top 5, so I can give you an example of this for me going. For me, there's 3 untouchables that it's very easy 1, 2, 3. I don't know the order, but my top 3 are interchangeable basically, and there's 3 that are incredibly obvious for me. I don't think this will be consensus, but on 2 of them it probably will be. And then 4 and 5 are very hard. I think there's 5 or 6 that could have been in the 4 and 5 slots, so I don't feel super passionately about what I put at 4 or 5, but I think those are also incredible films. Any sort of similar distinction, Hayley?
Yeah, kind of. My 1 and 2 are definitely hard and fast 1 and 2, definitely, and they can kind of switch amongst each other as well. And then 3 was pretty clear, and then 4 and 5 were definitely could be interchangeable as well. But yeah, cool. It's tough.
Yeah, Beatriz?
Same. I mean, I think 3, 4, and 5. Well, 3 not so much, but 4 and 5, it was just a constant change. I decided to rewatch all the films leading up to this episode, and because some of them I hadn't seen in years, and it was just the list was constantly changing. 1 and 2, solid. I would never change them for anything. 3, maybe, but 4 and 5, it's fluid. Ask me tomorrow and it'll be something else.
Yeah. My 3, I've had my 1 that's I'm going to present as 1 was different 6 months ago. It's yeah, and I can tell the one film I'm gonna have disagreements on. I said 3 untouchables. You guys said 2. I know it's coming here, so we'll get into this. But okay, but Hayley, why don't you start us off with your 5 and then 4, and so 5 and why, and then 4 and then why.
Sounds good. So my number 5 is Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind.
Okay.
So
wow. Okay.
I know. I'm sorry. It's 5, guys. I'm sorry. I'm sure it's higher on other people's. So I love Nausicaa because it's interesting when you watch it after having watched a lot of the other kind of newer Ghibli films and Miyazaki films, because you totally see all the little details and design elements and themes and everything that show up later on in this movie, with the type of the main character it is, with being a strong woman and everything, and the animation style, and having kind of it's an interesting storyline where there is a greater threat, but it's also kind of a closed-in story. It's not this big sweeping epic, which it kind of is at times, but you mostly are focusing on the main character. And then, of course, the environmental and anti-war messages as well, which show up tons in all of his movies. But yeah, I really like this one. It's gorgeous, and it's from the 80s, but the animation is incredible. With the colors of it and the design and everything, and all the characters are great. Nausicaa's lovely. Yeah, so that's my number 5.
Okay.
And
Yeah, we can comment briefly. Yeah, this is
comment.
I think you had a really interesting point with you called this like not an epic because it's so focused on Nausicaa. Like I think that's a really interesting perspective. This is the first one I'd point to as like being an epic, but at the same time I totally get what you mean because it's so character specific focused.
Right? Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, contrasting with Mononoke, which I'm sure we'll get into later. Yeah, I'll reserve thoughts on Nausicaa. Other than to new Miyazaki viewers, this is his second directed film. It's not technically part of the Ghibli canon, but it's Miyazaki. It's based on Miyazaki's own manga and heavy influences on all of current animation, especially Avatar. You see a ton of this isn't something that clicked to me at first for a while, but the wind people in Nausicaa are literally just the airbenders. So it's
they really are, aren't they?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I've seen airbender symbols in like the Miyazaki films. I saw like the influences of just like the fire, earth, water, air symbols. I saw them in the films, like before Avatar was even a thing. So it's just so heavily influenced.
Yeah, Mike and Brian, creators of Avatar, talk a lot about the Miyazakian influences. I never hear them mention Nausicaa, but I'm 100% sure that. I
mean, Korra and Nausicaa are so similar in many ways.
Yeah, they really are. Mononoke is the biggest influence, and we'll get into that. Yeah. Okay. I'm sure we'll get it. We'll get into Nausicaa later, Beatriz. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What's your number 4, Hayley?
So my number 4 is probably also going to make you upset, but it is Mononoke number 4.
Man. Okay.
I know there's
okay.
Here's prefacing. Basically, my number 1 and 2 are ones that are like emotionally resonant for me as like from the past kind of thing, watching in childhood. So that's why they eked it out. But in terms of like quality and stuff, probably my number 3 to 5 could definitely be like number 1 and 2. Anyway, so basically, the reason that I love Mononoke is that the characters and the world building are so great. And even in just like a short little bit of time, like just the opening credits with Ashitaka and everything, and even before he's left his community, you're kind of in the world and you figured out what's going on and how these people relate to each other. And Miyazaki's really good at that, of getting you integrated into the world quite quickly. The animation's lovely, of course. The message is great. And I particularly like that there's 2 opposing enemies in this battle, in this movie. And they're both given a lot of time and opportunity to explain their rationale and their reasoning so that you end up kind of sympathizing with both angles in their dispute, I suppose. But yeah, I think it was a really, really gorgeous film and really important message, and it was told very well. So that's why it's my number 4.
Yeah, for new Miyazaki viewers, this is one of the first ones you should go to. For sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess I didn't get into this in the beginning. I didn't set a clear terms on whether this is our favorite or the best. So Hayley's ranking is certainly valid in that we have certain films we're emotionally attached to more than others. Like personally, Whisper of the Heart, which is not eligible for this, it's not Miyazaki directed, but is a Studio Ghibli film, is like one of my favorite films ever. So like on my like favorite Ghibli list, it's like number 1, but on my best Ghibli list, it's further down. So it's it's tough to get into. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we don't need to comment too much on these because we'll discuss later. I'm sure. Yeah. So interesting stuff. So Beatriz, let's get into your 5.
Okay, well, now I'm curious to see your reactions. So number 5 for me is My Neighbor Totoro.
Okay.
Which, like, it's, in some ways, I do feel it's the perfect family film. It's just the way he managed to, like, reinvent these spirits and these gods of Japanese myth and legend, and in such a, I guess, in a family-friendly way, and the way he managed to create this sort of utopia. I mean, and it goes, as Hayley mentioned, there's a lot of like talk in all his films. There's a lot of talk about nature and technology and how we have to respect nature and live with it, not against it. And in Totoro, it's interesting how technology is kind of just absent and it's all nature. And it's just this really interesting family drama that people might just think it's so superficial at times, or think it's like very simple, when in fact there's just so much visually there that visually it's telling the story and telling you all the complexities that maybe just through words they're not saying. And it's just a fantastic film. just pacing and everything. It's just great.
Yeah. Five's a good spot for Totoro. It's a really hard film to analyze and talk about. Sam and I tried. We had a podcast on Totoro. You can check that out. But, yeah, it's, there's like very little narrative and, the characterization this is a common theme, I think, of the best Miyazaki films. Like the narrative's there's not that much narrative and the characters aren't super standout. Sometimes they are, in certain films. But just Totoro is just all about like everything else about the film is
exactly.
Yeah. It's visual.
Yeah. It's hard to critique like the feeling of a movie.
Right.
Like that one leaves you with a feeling at the end rather than being like, oh, that was an interesting storyline and script and everything.
It's an experience, and it's just a lot of Miyazaki's things are just such a visual experience. They're just like you have to see in order to understand. And I feel like especially with animation, that's such key. You can't with something that you work so hard to like draw and to slave over. For it to be so visually enticing, I think is what makes it such a outstanding project.
Yeah, I think My Neighbor Totoro and another film we'll get to are, I think, the prime examples of kind of experiential films, like not narrative based, not character based. These are like experience based narratives, and I still think it's like storytelling, but it's maybe not like such a traditional narrative. And for Miyazaki, Newbies, Totoro is also a core film that you need to see. I don't think this is like everyone's gonna love this movie. It is the slowest paced, quietest film you'll ever see.
Totally. I mean, sometimes it's so. In some ways, like for instance, the relationship between the two sisters. It's just like, for instance, the young sister May. I at times couldn't handle her voice because it was so annoying to me. But that's the perfect embodiment of a 4-year-old child. Yeah. Like, that's what they are. And it's like, it's so true. And that might not work for some people.
Her sub or dubbed voice?
Sub. Okay. I watched them all sub.
Yeah.
How did you guys do?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've seen a lot of these both ways. For Totoro, I'd actually highly recommend the dub because they do a really interesting thing and they get the Fanning sisters at a young age. And I think it's awesome to play the two sisters.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So you get Ellen Dakota on that, and it's really good. They do a great job with that. Totoro, maybe we'll talk about it again. We'll see. But definitely an iconic Miyazaki film. And I'm glad it made some of our lists here. Beatriz, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is Porco Rosso.
Okay.
This film to me, like as someone who loves like classic Hollywood films, it's like this film gave off that feeling of that. I don't know. It's a film that from the first frame to the last, I was just smiling. And it's the one film out of all of them that made me laugh out loud. And its characters I find very interesting. They all have their purpose. No one's like dumbed down or anything. And it's interesting how like the plot of the film isn't complicated. You know, in a lot of these Miyazaki films, the plot itself, if you take everything away, it's not overly complicated. But because of its setting and the way the visuals the way the setting is built, it makes the film so fantastic. And adds even the smallest character, it gives them a lot of complexity. And I honestly think this is just basically Miyazaki's love for flight and for his planes, because planes and air and flying is such a big component to a lot of his films. This is him just going, this is what I dream about. This is why flying and planes are so cool. And I'm just going to tell this great adventure.
Yeah. Love that this is on your list. I think this is the most underrated Miyazaki film, and totally. I think maybe the most underrated film of all time. I think this is like an all-time classic, and we'll talk about it more. But it's great choice there. And you probably this isn't one that you'll hear a lot talked about, like when Miyazaki films are like first mentioned. But this should be, once you get past the obvious names, your Spirited Away, Mononoke, Totoro's, you should go to this one.
And can I just say, if you end up watching this one and you love it, please watch Lupin. Like, watch it, people. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's like, spoiler, it's not on my list, but it's just, there's so many elements from it that you see in later works of Miyazaki. And this is the film that Porco Rosso gives off the similar type of feeling that Lupin gives, if not just more creative, more fantastical, more Miyazaki-esque.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never really thought about it that way before. I would agree. Porco Rosso is very different from the other Miyazaki films. I think Lupin would be the closest to it. Yeah.
They're kind of like more for adult kind of audience almost.
Yeah, they're like adult oriented and just like more traditional kind of adventure films, which is
definitely.
Yeah. It's more like the popcorn film, and you can just enjoy it, and you don't have to read into things. But they're so fun. I feel like they're some of the few films of Miyazaki's that you can watch again and again and again. Because there are others that you can watch once and you're like, okay, I've experienced it. I don't need to see it again. But for these, this is like superhero movies. You can just keep seeing them again and it's still fun.
Yeah. If you're a traditional viewer, you'll like Porco Rosso. I think Lupin's even more of a traditional film. Yeah. But I think So we can get right into this. Number 5, my number 5 is Porco Rosso. So we can keep talking about it. Yeah. I think it's the most underrated film of all time. This is really hard. This versus some of the other ones that I was considering. But I have it here at 5. I've always been a proponent of Porco Rosso being in the top tier of Miyazaki films. I think this is of similar quality to the top ones I'll be discussing. I think incredibly highly of this film. It has just such a great world that it bases it around. And it's crazy that this is, other than the main character, there are like 0 fantasy elements to this. And it's just very kind of traditional. Its narrative's weird, but it has more of a traditional narrative. And the main character I don't really care about that much, but just everyone who like surrounds him in the world and the world itself are absolutely incredible. I think the world of Porco Rosso. I think this is I haven't seen it. It's not one of the ones I rewatched recently, but it's always been one of my favorites, and I'm definitely looking forward to checking it out again.
You don't care about Porco?
I don't really care about him that much now. I don't think
okay, all right.
Yeah, on the scale of
okay, I know, totally. There are some characters I'm more interested in.
We'll talk about my faves later, but yes, that's my 5. 4, I predict will be absent from Beatriz's list based on her structuring is Castle in the Sky.
You know me so well.
I can tell based on your
already.
I can tell you said based on yes. This is also Laputa Castle in the Sky, also what it's known as. This is the first one of Miyazaki's earliest films. I've always struggled with this movie a little bit because I don't super innately connect to it, but I also like recognize its greatness. I also like hate the dub of this movie, like not because it's like bad. It's just one of the voices annoys me. This is a really weird movie. It's a traditional Miyazaki adventure film. Go a lot of places, have a lot of like side characters join you. It's weird in that there's two main characters, and neither of them I don't really. Another film, I don't really care about either of the main characters of this movie, but I love everything that they do. And once we get to get to Laputa at the end of the movie, it is just like bliss. It is some of the best. It's so absolutely incredible, just visually and everything there. I think the villain in this movie is really good, and just everything we experience at the end, and even the stuff with the pirates in the middle. It's if you haven't heard of this movie, you should watch this movie. It's really incredible. I think when I was thinking about this movie again, I got reminded of the kind of the robot. I forget what they're called. The robots you see on Laputa by the Guardians in Zelda Breath of Wild. I think that they're kind of similar. So that's my interesting observation.
It also reminded me of Iron Giant.
Definitely Iron Giant. Yeah. I assume Iron Giant is like based on this movie basically, but
it has to be. Like that design's probably the exact same.
This is from the 80s, but this is definitely an incredible film. I think it's a top tier film for me. Yeah, cool. So there's my 5 and 4. Okay, let's get into 3 and 2. Getting into the nitty gritty here. So Hayley, let's get into your 3.
Sure, I'm gonna make people mad again, but my number 3 should be number 1 on anyone who doesn't have connections to the first 2 that I have. But my number 3 is Spirited Away. So based on like animation and story and everything like that, it is definitely number 1. It's like, but it's not my number 3. Just, you'll see my list later. But basically, it's kind of like a perfect story from the beginning to the end and everything that happens in between. Everything flows so well and connects and makes sense and everything. And the characters are great. And yet again, transports you into the world. Miyazaki's so good at that. And even like the detail in this animation is breathtaking at times. Like all the little details in the bathhouse and the background and the scenery and everything are really gorgeous and the colors are so rich. And especially because it's like this spirit world, he really could let loose and create all sorts of funny looking characters and interesting designs and things. So yeah, Spirited Away is definitely like in my top films, regardless of any categories, animation or otherwise. It's definitely a like breathtaking movie. It's really incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your list is interesting. Yeah, it's we don't need to talk about that.
I know.
Yeah.
If I was doing a like critically best, that would like no question be number one for me.
Interesting.
No question.
Yeah. We'll talk more about Spirited Away. I predict your 2 and 1 in some order are Kiki's and Howl's, but let's see. What's your number 2?
Dylan, you're right. Yeah. So my number 1 and 2, honestly, they could switch places a lot, but my number 2 is Kiki's Delivery Service. So that was the one that I watched obsessively as a child. And even like, when you see something or you hear something and you're just like transported back to childhood, that is Kiki for me. Like I was listening to music and the soundtrack popped on at some point and I was like, oh, like I gasped because the sound was playing. And it's beautiful. And it's really a neat movie as well, where like we were talking about with Totoro, where it has a conflict at the end kind of, but the main point of the movie is just Kiki's development and kind of like trying to get over her fear of change and growing up and taking risks and things like that. And that's just like gotten more poignant to me as I've gotten older, basically. It's such an amazing message and Kiki's great and all the characters are great in it and animation's beautiful. And I find the soundtrack in that one is particularly beautiful. Even though all of them are. So that's why I love Kiki. It's so special to me.
Yeah. Kiki not on my list. I definitely get the love. You'll see this from a lot of people. I also have the nostalgic connections to it. I feel very strongly that this is not as good as some of the other films we're talking about, but at the same time, I definitely get it. I think this film's incredible. It's so incredibly character focused and I love Kiki.
Yeah. I totally agree with you though about it not being like compared to other ones. I completely agree. It's not high. It's just the nostalgia push kind of thing.
Totally valid there.
Yeah, it was like almost my number 5, and then Totoro just slowly
interesting
because there's that one, I can't go into obviously because there's no spoilers, but there's one moment in Kiki that stays with me more than some other films. Even Totoro.
Does Kiki have spoilers? I feel like this is like the least spoilery film.
Can I? Like, I don't know. I don't want to risk it.
I don't think anything happens in this movie. So yeah,
not much.
Okay. Well, all right. I'll keep it as vague as possible. Just that one frame where she says "fly." Okay. Where she just goes "fly." Yeah. I can't. I won't go into. It's that one to me was so powerful. Like it's the culmination of her entire journey, and that just frame, that shot, just stayed with me for so long. And
discovering her inner power.
Exactly. And if you go in more and think about how Miyazaki essentially deconstructed the magical girl trope with her and how he just was like, no, we're going to make more than just one and she's going to have to work for it. And it's like this great thing. And Kiki's great.
Yeah. And I should say, this film definitely resonates with me. I could see how it would resonate even stronger with young girls watching this, like how that could be even more special to them. So I just want to get that out there. But I've always wished Kiki did something at the end of the movie. The movie just had something at the end, but
it's very internal. Nice. The conflicts are very internal, so it could be seen as boring, even though it's like there's a lot happening.
Really wish it did just one thing, like one thing movie. Okay.
There's a funny thing a random anecdote. Because there's a documentary, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's the Kingdoms of Dreams and Madness. Yeah, it's on Netflix, but it's all about Ghibli and Miyazaki. But it offers such an interesting thing that a lot of the time Miyazaki doesn't write a script. He just writes the storyboards with no plan in mind and sees what happens. And you can definitely feel that in a lot of these movies where you're kind of going around like, what is happening? It's like he probably didn't know when he was writing it either.
I think the one where like the one that maybe is the most affected by that is The Wind Rises, because that last scene, that final shot, like that was the most. But I won't go into that.
Definitely.
Yeah. If there's any movie, that Kiki. If any movie doesn't have a script, it's Kiki. But it's also interesting to compare that Miyazaki not going in without a script to some of the more board-driven shows like the Cartoon Network shows now. That's still remains more of a board writing versus like script written shows like Avatar and stuff. Okay, Beatriz, let's get into your number 3.
All right, number 3 for me is Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind. So I love Nausicaa. I think if there's ever, because, Miyazaki's known for his female characters. He's known for that iconic, like, strong main female character who will just get things done. And Nausicaa is that. Like, that, I feel like, is the best film as, like, a gateway. For people who have never seen Miyazaki, Nausicaa is just, like, just watch that and you'll get it. You'll get, like, everything, because basically, like, he put everything he wanted to tell in film in that one film. And then you see the themes, like, he comes back to those themes in every single film that follows. And in some ways, the reason for me, Castle in the Sky is pretty low in my just overall top 11 list is because it's somewhat has the same themes as Nausicaa, only simplified. Nausicaa is like very, even though yes, it's focused just on her, there's so many prototypes of characters he's going to further explore later on. There's so many themes that are very complex, and yeah, they're not as polished as, say, some other films that we're going to probably talk about later. But it's just so great, and it just showed all his potential for the films that we were going to get. And it's still just, even though it's not as polished, it's still such a great film that it's my number 3. At first it wasn't that high, and then it kept rising up, and I just couldn't say no to it.
Yeah. It's definitely the most Miyazakian film. Like there's so many elements in Nausicaa. I agree with you to a certain extent that Castle in the Sky is a poor man's Nausicaa.
No, I didn't say poor man's Nausicaa. Like usually people make the connection with Nausicaa and Mononoke. People usually think that Mononoke is Nausicaa remade, but for me, Nausicaa has more connections with Castle in the Sky. Not to say either one's a poor man's, just that. For me, Nausicaa
I can see it. Yeah. I don't think that should mean Castle in the Sky is that much lower though, because it could be, it's 3 and 4 still lower, but it's there. But Nausicaa and Mononoke are like the most giant epic, fantasy epic type films, but there's a lot of Castle in the Sky connections. Okay, what's your number 2, Beatriz?
And maybe this will be a little bit controversial, but I mean, these two for me are just, I can't switch them. These are like the 2 spots that are not, like the number 1 and number 2 for me are just not fluid. They're stagnant. And number 2, Spirited Away. Like, I understand why, like, people would put it above my number 1, but at the same time, I'm just like, I won't go into number 1, but I can't do it. And yeah, Spirited Away is in just this fantastic film. It's just so crazy, and there's so much there that you can't, like, some of my favorite movies are the ones or shows or whatever are the ones I have to see over and over and over again to find new things in them. And that's Spirited Away. There's no way you can just take all that you see in with just one sitting. There's no way. And there's so much there that you can read into. And yeah, the story's fantastic. And I do think this is one of the few films where the romance element works in Miyazaki films. But it's just from the visuals to the characters to the themes to the symbolisms and allegories and whatnot. It's just a great film.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, I'll save comments. Okay. So, I mean, at this point, we're seeing a lot of the same movies. So I will. Yeah. Okay. So let me preface this. So I think a year, maybe even 6 months ago, my number 3 was my number 1. They constantly shuffle my 3, 2, and 1. They're all the same in terms of. So let me also say this. This is a bold claim. I think these 3 films I'm going to talk about are the 3 best films of all time, animated or not. My 3 best films of all time. And I'll start with number 3 with Nausicaa. Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind. I mean, we've talked about it a lot. This is just an incredible epic. There's so much here. I'll talk about some particularly notable elements. Just the the world building, the giant, just the giant fantasy aspect of it all, the poison forest, like it's some of the best, like one of the best in fantasy worlds you'll ever see. Nausicaa, I think, is an incredible character, one of the best of all time, and I absolutely love her. One of the rare Miyazaki leads, which I really, really connect to. Like, it's interesting. Nausicaa, I love her so much. My 1 and 2, I don't particularly connect to any of the characters there, with a few exceptions. But Nausicaa, the characterization is definitely a strength. And just the ohms and the ohm sequence towards the end of this film is the best you'll ever see. So, like, it's and the flashback, the music that goes along with it, the climax of this film is untouchable and incredible. Yeah, I've given my thoughts also on a separate podcast about Nausicaa, and I also think this is like the godmother of all modern current animation. So like this is like the most influential film. Like I could even see I could even see Rey from Star Wars being influenced by her. Yeah, I agree with that. Mm-hmm. I don't know time wise how that works, but yeah, you see similarities there and stuff. I think Mononoke is maybe more directly influential towards current animation, but Mononoke is also like a byproduct of Nausicaa and stuff like that. So yeah, Nausicaa, my number 3. Again, the order doesn't really matter here. Right now, number 2, I will go Princess Mononoke at 2. This is one that has grown on me every time I watch it. And I think the most recent time I watched it, I loved it even more than before. It's not a film that like naturally speaks to me. It's like pretty violent and pretty fast-paced action-wise, which are not necessarily the types of films that I connect to. But like this is an incredibly kind of complex movie. And there's so many elements of Mononoke that just really stand out. I've always loved I don't really care about Ashitaka. I don't know, is that controversial? But I don't care. I don't know. I don't care too much about him. I think Lady Eboshi is a big standout character. Who is I believe Hayley talked about her on the best villains, top 5 villains podcast. Yeah.
Love her. And she's like one of my favorite characters, period.
I wouldn't have even thought of her for my top villains list because I don't necessarily think of her as a villain, but that's,
I know, right? Yeah. She's like kind of walks the line.
Yeah. It's really interesting, really great character. The fact that this film is like, what is this, like 1999 and she's like 1997 and she's like the most feminist character in like any film you'll see. It's crazy.
I know, right? Yeah. She'd be radical nowadays.
Yeah. I absolutely love her. And, San is, I think, also incredible. I really love her too. Although not that too much of a developed character, but the climax of this film, the entire like last hour, was just so absolutely insane. I don't know if I connected it so directly, but the Avatar books 1 and 2 finales are both like directly come from the climax of Mononoke, like they're the exact same thing. So I don't know if I thought of it that explicitly before, but you get the Nightwalker and then you get the killing of the Nightwalker in books 1 and 2 respectively. But Mononoke is absolutely incredible film, and you should absolutely a must watch. Let's for number 1s, let's go to Beatriz first to continue the Mononoke discussion.
Yep. I can't buy it because of that. Yeah. My number 1 is Mononoke. It's just like as I was rewatching them, I was just like writing notes as I was watching them, and basically the first thing I say for Mononoke after seeing it is Lady Eboshi, my queen. She is my favorite character, like my absolute favorite Miyazaki character. And it's interesting how you can see, like, for instance, Kushana from Nausicaa is essentially her prototype. She was like the first kind of, like, you can see like the connections in Mononoke from so many of the films previous. And for me, it's a perfect film. Like, I understand why, like, for instance, Ashitaka wouldn't be the most interesting person, especially when surrounded by all these other really interesting people. But it's just such a great film. And the action, like, even though you're not a fan of violence and action or high action, I am. Well, not the violence part, but the high action part. And I don't know, I just found so much of this film to be moving. And it's one of the most open-ended endings of Miyazaki. Like, it's not 100% like positive. It's not a bad ending. It's not a happy ending. It's a maybe. And it's so thought-provoking, and just like even though Mononoke is the title character, she isn't at the center stage of it, but she still is someone you gravitate towards, and from the music to the visuals, and this is essentially Miyazaki perfecting his epics. You know, Nausicaa for me lacked polish, Castle in the Sky lacked complexity for me. Mononoke had both, and just married the two. And it's interesting how, I don't want to go too deep into it because you can spend hours talking about Mononoke, but how it's a very dark film. And usually with Miyazaki, it's a lot of light film. It's a lot of lightheartedness. And even with darkness, there's always joy. With Mononoke, for the most part, it's very scary and dark. And it shows how important and how difficult it is to deal with this issue of nature, especially now, given the current climate, pun intended, of today. It's just so of the moment. It's a film that doesn't age. I think it's timeless, and it's just interesting. And it lacks flight. It followed Porco Rosso, so maybe they were just tired of animating people flying, but it's lack of flight and that absence of that just proves how grounded everybody is. It's like, this isn't supposed to be a film about nature and humanity working together. This is a film about a war, and we don't know what comes next. And that to me is just mind blowing. And I love this film so much.
Yeah, a lot of great points there. I thank you for bringing up Kushana from Nausicaa, who, like, I totally agree that's the same archetype as Lady Boshin. I love Kushana so much. Definitely the second best character in Nausicaa.
Totally.
Yeah, this is like the culmination of Miyazaki's like epic building. I really would have loved to have him like tried another giant epic, because Mononoke is just so absolutely incredible. I mean, basically I think the history behind that is the director of Whisper of the Heart like died from overworking on that movie, and then like Mononoke came out, and then Miyazaki's like, okay, I'm gonna retire, and then so we didn't really get a follow up to that, but and then we got Miyazaki kind of going down the more of the adventure group of friends type of route with Spirited Away and Howls. But yeah, I mean, I would say the average viewer would rank Princess Mononoke as number one. Like this is just such a widely connectable film, and I also think it just like holds up as just like a modern like action film. It's
completely, yeah.
And not just that, but the history, like it's essentially the history, like where it's based. It's so like, you know, a lot of times Miyazaki's films are very European centered. You know, they're either in Europe or they have their like mixture of West and East. In Mononoke, it's very like, yes, the technology you could argue came from the West and whatever, but it's like it's like it was inspired by the Kojiki, which is like that. Sorry, I don't want to get too into it, but there's just so much there that's like intrinsic to Japanese history and myth that it's so layered and deep, and I love it so much.
Yeah. The dub of Mononoke is really good, but I'd highly recommend watching it subbed for that reason, because of all the Japanese cultural influences on the film. Yeah. That's like one of the big reasons to watch subbed for me, is when like the Japanese influences like matter on it, and Mononoke is like the highest Miyazaki film in that regard. Okay. So Hayley, let's get into your number one.
Okay, so my number one is probably controversial, but my number one is Howl's Moving Castle. And I was sitting down trying to figure out why it's my number one, and it's hard to describe, but I think it's kind of like we were talking about earlier, where with a lot of Miyazaki's films, you finish it and you just have like a feeling of the movie, kind of. And that definitely does it for me. Like, I've watched it dozens of times. The first time I watched it, I finished it and was like, okay, what was that? And then I immediately replayed it to watch it again. And I love it so much. I think I've tried to figure it out. And I think why I love it so much is that I love stories that have really defined characters, that like, you know, their motivations and you understand how they would react to things, and kind of like their own internal battles that they're fighting in amongst the bigger battles of a storyline. And the characters in Howl's Moving Castle are completely that to me. And I love that Sophie, who's the main character in Howl, she's kind of like one of the archetypes of Miyazaki movies, where she's not like, well, I guess Mononoke and Nausicaa are a little different, but Sophie isn't like an all-powerful being or anything. She's kind of just like any other lady that's walking around doing her thing, and she's not really taking control of her future or her destiny. And this whole story allows her to do that and discover that she does have power inside. Even if she's hanging out with all these magical people, she still has power as well in her own right. Yeah, and the music in it is gorgeous to me. The animation's gorgeous, and I just love all like the fantasy elements of it. Yeah, so that's why I love Howl's Moving Castle. It just makes me happy whenever I watch it, basically.
I will say, you're not the only one to hold this opinion. A lot of people really love Howl's, especially some like younger people like us. And I know this is in a lot of people's hearts, is like they grew up with this movie and it's like one of their favorite things. Personally, you know, like this is in the Kiki's tier for me, is like a tier below these ones, but definitely a great movie.
Yeah, my heart is so happy that you picked it, so we got to talk about it. Like it's weird because it's actually ranked like my lowest in like my top 11, even though it's the film I've seen the most, the film that I like. Sophie as a character is the one that connects the most with me. Like she's the character that spoke to me. I was like, yes, she gets it. But yeah, so I'm so glad you picked it.
Yeah, I definitely understand the personal collection. Yeah, I'd probably have this at like 9 or 10. But you know, I like as I said though, there's 10 that are like some of the best of all time. So I still
you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong.
No, that's the thing. Ultimately, like you can go flip-flopping all around, and whatever your combination's going to be, they're all incredible films. So it's going to be great either way.
And I totally relate to the personal favorite thing. Like if this was a Ghibli ranking, I'd have Whisper the Heart #1, and everyone would like be like, "What?" You know. So, that's my version of this.
Yeah, Kaguya would be #1 for me, and people would be confused, and I'd be like, "Well, whatever. Who cares?"
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So my #1 obviously is Spirited Away. Rewatched Spirited Away for the umpteenth time. Absolutely incredible film. Really fascinating to me why this film is so good, because the characters aren't super great. I think that other Miyazaki films have better characters. I like Chihiro, the main character of this film, but I'm not like super in love with her, and I don't really care about the male lead too much. And also, I don't think this film is like a super structured plot. This is like the quintessential experience. This, like I said, this and Totoro, like the experiential film. And somehow, I think this emerges as the best film of all time. So it's kind of crazy. But yeah, this is, if you sit down and watch this, this is the ultimate suck you in movie. Like literally the main character gets sucked into this world, and it is one of the best, most enticing, like, developed world, like fantasy worlds here. And just every element of the story is, really interesting and presented, really incredibly. You know, just production wise, obviously the animation, the score, the theme, or I don't know what the iconic score from this is it the theme or is it the romance song or whatever, but it's incredible and iconic. No Face in particular I think is like the best side character of all time. There's you know, like Yubaba's great, you know, the Haku and Chiro are fine, and their thing above the river is iconic and incredible in the end of this movie. Interestingly, I watched this in like the original cut, subbed Japanese, kind of unintentionally in my most recent rewatch, and I'd always watched the extended dub. There's like the dub is like adds like 20 minutes to it, I think. And like like the part of Chihiro and Haku, like there's like a part where I guess this is spoilers, but something about like the river,
my God.
something about like him being someone being the river, that's like not in the original cut, I think. So that's yeah.
Wait, really? That's interesting. I think they have the extended cut as the only cut they show in like the new re-release of the Ghibli films, the Miyazaki collection.
Yeah, I assume that's the
like,
one.
I assume that's the one. That's the one that they put because
so you like don't get an explanation on it, and it's like kind of interesting. It's like implied that that's the case, but yeah, I want to go back. I want to go back and watch the extended one again because I like that better. But yeah, it's you know, I mean, I think the world of this movie, and it's like untouchable to me. So that's my #1. Yeah, it's a tough decision though between this Mononoke and Nausicaa. All three incredible for me. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about what didn't make the cut on our lists. So like, you know, we could talk about all 11, but like, what genuinely were you considering for a spot in the top 5 that didn't make it? Is my question. Let's start with Hayley.
Well, my honorable mentions are Totoro, because it definitely, I love it. I do love it. It didn't make it just because, I don't know, there's something about it that it like pulls you in, but I feel like not quite enough happened in it almost, which is kind of lovely if you just want like a chilling movie or whatever. But in terms of like the iconography and the character of Totoro and everything, it's a great movie. And it's like, oftentimes when people think of Miyazaki or Ghibli, they picture Totoro. So it's important for that. And then my other honorable would be The Wind Rises, which was a really neat movie for me because I wouldn't put it in my top 5 just because I got bored a couple times in it every so often. But like when I finished it, it really did. I think it's a good one if you just kind of let it happen and just watch it and let it wash over you and everything. And also with thinking as well that although he might be coming back, this was kind of like Miyazaki's final retirement one or movie as well, which honestly, he probably will never fully retire. I doubt that will happen. But yeah, it's a really touching and beautiful movie, The Wind Rises. So those are my honorable, but honestly, any of them could be in my honorable.
Nice. Yeah. Beatriz, what about you?
Well, I'll say that Lupin, people need to give a shot to. It's the one I think that most people haven't seen, but it's fantastic because I, for a long time, didn't want to get into Lupin the Third because I would always see Fujiko and I'm just like, oh, the male gaze, it hurts. But then with the thing that Miyazaki manages to do with Lupin is get rid of that. He managed to make a film about a playboy spy thief person, and he took the male gaze completely out of it. And it's fascinating. And it introduces you to these wonderful characters that have a wonderful camaraderie. And you know that there's more there. This is just one small adventure in a wider canon. But it was just so well done. And it really reminded me of, like, again, old Hollywood Hitchcockian films like To Catch a Thief or something. It's just this wonderful film that I really want more people to see. And I guess I'll mention Ponyo because we haven't really talked about that one. And it's nice, it's lovely, it's visually beautiful. I think just if you're someone who's very much into just what you see instead of what you hear and what the story is, the Ponyo is going to be a great time. Yeah, it's not the most provocative, the most thought-provoking film, but it's cute.
Yeah.
It is definitely that.
I do agree. I think Ponyo is like one of the most visually striking films ever. So like it's worth seeing just for that. I owe it a rewatch, but my initial impressions were much less of a quality tier than the others. I'd seriously considered 2 other films for my 4 and 5 slots. One is Lupin the Third. Honestly, like that's one of the top to upper half Miyazaki films for me. What's incredible about Lupin is it's very similar story structure to a lot of other action adventure films. They like discover a thing and you like go through all the things and with the girl in the top and you know, but it's like somehow the best of that version I've ever seen. And it was Miyazaki's first film, so he kind of like perfected the action adventure genre to start with. And I just love watching this movie. Like it's less deep than the others that we're talking about, but it's just so much fun and I really do love it.
Yeah. And can I just say that, like, you will see things in Lupin the Third that you will see elsewhere. Like, for instance, Castle in the Sky and the whole, like, oh, we come from the same family, ancestry, and now I'm going to force you to be with me. Like, the whole, just Lupin is just it's so early on that you see where Miyazaki's mind is going to start to go. And you see how just his first experience influences everything else. And it's just fascinating to see just from that perspective.
Yeah, and from 1979, so
right, like that's insane.
Kind of pretty incredible. Yeah, no, that movie really holds up. By the way, more so than some of these others we're discussing too. Even like it like really holds up now. And I also seriously considered Totoro for my top 5. Totoro's always like a question of like, is it just like an influential classic, or is it like genuinely a really good film? And it is really genuinely really good film, but it's so slow and so it's a lot. But ultimately, there's certainly at least moments in it, and also the entire film I think is genuinely very good. It's a lot different from some of these other ones. I guess like Whisper of the Heart or some of the Takata films are more similar to it, but it's really really incredible. It's weird fantasy slice of life, like I don't know, but yeah. And other than that, I wouldn't really put the others in my top 5. I love Kiki's, I love Howl's. Wind Rises is I need to evaluate a few more times. I still haven't settled on that one, but
it's a complicated one.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Wind Rises is somehow like much less feminist than like the 1970 and 80 Lupin and Nausicaa, so I don't.
It's everything. It's less feminist. It's less pacifist. It's a weird, interesting film.
Yeah, to like take breaks, like give 20 minutes, go get a snack, and then come back.
No, definitely boring at times. He like tried to just create a played for straight like period like character retelling, like historical. So I don't know, interesting.
But then all the fantasy like dream sequences kind of snuck in at the same time.
Yeah, those are incredible. Those are like Porco Rosso. Like
I love that. Yeah.
So there you go. Yep, I think we made it through the top 5s here. Love to get into individual podcasts on a lot of these. Maybe we'll finally have like a Spirited Away podcast and like a Mononoke podcast. But,
yeah, because they all deserve so much more. Like there's breaking it down. There's things that are like hidden in them that you don't notice the first couple times, and they're fascinating.
Yeah.
The only thing that's harder from making a top 5 list is talking very little about each film.
Yeah.
Because there's so much.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd have trouble like articulating like why Spirited Away is so incredible. So that's always been a challenge for me, but maybe we can attempt that at some point. But yeah, let us know what your top 5 is. And if you haven't seen them all, definitely check out all of them. But yeah, if you want to post your top 5, you can do so in the comments, whether on the website or on YouTube or Tumblr or whatever. And check out our other Ghibli podcasts, if you haven't gotten into the non-Miyazaki Ghibli ones, Grave of the Fireflies is a classic, just like genuinely a classic. Only Yesterday is absolutely incredible, and I have some personal favorites like Whisper of the Heart, and Up on Poppy Hill is somehow one of my personal favorites, and all of them are good though. So we could also get into our top 5 non-Miyazaki Ghibli films, but that's another podcast. Also Marnie, shout out to Marnie too, which is like our second podcast. Great. I rewatched that recently, still really great. Yeah, I don't know. Closing thoughts, Hayley?
They're great. They're just so good. And I think Miyazaki and what we were talking about and everything, something that really stands out is that he's so good at making a movie have just like an atmosphere about it and a feeling that really resonates with you. And because I know a lot of the time with other movies, if it has kind of a slow plot line or there's not much going on, it's kind of like, oh, this movie sucks. But that's kind of a stereotype of Miyazaki's movies, and yet they're incredible. So he's truly is like the legendary master filmmaker that people always chalk him up to be able to write such kind of simple, contained stories, but make it so appealing that you can't look away. So I love him forever and always.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like for me, one of the most interesting things about animation, this is a much larger discussion. One of the most interesting things about animation is like that you have complete control over the medium. You can just affect everything. And Miyazaki is the example of how you take advantage of all of that to construct an incredible experience. Like I think animation and Miyazaki will go hand in hand forever. Forgot to mention Princess Kaguya also as one of the absolutely incredible
it's amazing.
We podcast on that. Really, it sneaks up on you how good that movie is. Anyway, last comments, Beatriz.
Just watch his films. Just watch them. That's all I'm gonna say. Like you can't. If you haven't seen them, please watch them. And if you have seen them, watch them again because they're great.
Yeah. I rewatched. Whisper of the Heart really holds up. Or it does too, by the way, but you'll get bored. But blah blah blah. Yeah, the Spirited Away really holds up on rewatch even for like the millionth time, and it's just really interesting noticing different things and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely check these out if you haven't. Let us know what your favorites are and what you'd most like to see us discuss in more depth from this, and check that out at overlyanimated.com. You can also consider supporting us on patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thank you very much to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Mitch, aka Fever Mitch. And thanks as always to our patron executive producers, John, Ryan, Steve, and Alex. Yeah, I thought this was a good job. Beatriz, Haley, good lists. Even if they were incorrect, like my list, they were still they're still good lists. Yeah, okay. We got to talk about like almost everyone, so that was good. I'm happy.
Yeah,
with that, yeah. Okay, cool. So thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.